3 weeks had passed since Kethvar first asked about the Sol system. The question burned in his mind like fire. Every day he walked past the wall display and stared at that blank space. Every night he tried to search for more information but found nothing. He could not eat properly. He could not sleep well. His green skin had become pale, and his eyes had dark circles under them. Finally, Kethvar made a decision. He would use his diplomatic access codes to enter the restricted archive levels beneath the council building. It was against the rules, but he had to know. Late at night, when most beings were sleeping, he took the elevator down to the basement levels. The elevator went down, down, down for a very long time. He had never been this deep in the building before. The doors opened to a long hallway with dim lights. The walls were made of old stone, not the bright metal of the upper levels. This part of the building was very old. At the end of the hallway was a heavy door with a security scanner. Kethvar put his hand on the scanner. A red light blinked, then turned green. His diplomatic codes worked. Inside was a huge room full of shelves that reached up to the ceiling. Thousands and thousands of files were stored here. Some were on data crystals, some were on old paper, and some were carved into metal plates. Kethvar found the section labeled First Contact Records Historical. He looked for files from 200 years ago, around the time when humans might have first met the council. Most of the files from that time period were damaged. Some had holes burned through them. Others had been torn apart. A few had warning labels that said Classified, Galactic Security. But Kethvar found some pieces that were still readable. He sat down at an old reading desk and began to put the pieces together like a puzzle. The first file he could read said, Species encountered in outer rim systems. Call themselves humans. Appear peaceful. Standard first contact procedures initiated. The next file was more interesting. Humans have unusual technology. Their ships are smaller than ours but move faster. They seem friendly and want to trade. Then came a file that made Kethvar's hands shake. Council observers report humans have weapons that work in ways we do not understand. Recommend careful approach. The next several files were completely destroyed. Only small pieces remained with words like demonstration, and star manipulation, and unprecedented power. Then Kethvar found a file that was mostly complete. It was a report from an observer named Zalthuan. The human representative said they would show us their defensive capabilities. They asked all council ships to move to a safe distance. We thought safe distance meant a few thousand kilometers. They told us to move much, much further away. We watched from our ships as the humans did something to their own star. The star began to change color. It became brighter and brighter. Energy poured out of it in ways that our scientists said were impossible. 3 human colonies were in the path of this energy. We expected the humans to protect these colonies somehow. Instead, the colonies simply disappeared. Millions of their own people gone in an instant. The human representative spoke to us afterward. She said, "This was the smallest demonstration we could give you. We destroyed our own people to show you that we prefer peace. But if you force us to war, we will do to your stars what we just did to ours." No council member spoke for a full day after this. Kethvar read this passage 3 times. His green skin had turned almost white. Humans had destroyed their own people just to show what they could do to enemies. He found more pieces from different files. Council vote unanimous humans to be given any territory they request. All future contact with Sol system forbidden except by special permission. Recommendation: leave them alone. Do not make them angry. These beings are too dangerous to interact with normally. Then Kethvar found one more piece that made everything clear. It was from the personal diary of Elder Counselor Thresh-El, written 200 years ago when he was young. Today I learned what real fear feels like. The humans did not threaten us. They did not demand anything from us. They simply showed us what they could do, then asked us to stay away from their home. But the most frightening thing was not their power. It was the sadness in their eyes when they destroyed their own colonies. They did not enjoy showing us this. They hated it. What kind of beings have such terrible power but feel sad about using it? What kind of beings would kill their own people just to avoid killing strangers? I hope I never have to find out what they would do to protect the people they actually love. Kethvar sat back in his chair. His whole body was shaking now. The blank space on the map was not there because humans were mysterious. It was there because they were the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. And they had chosen to stay away from everyone else. Suddenly, the lights in the archive room became brighter. Someone was coming down the hallway. Kethvar quickly put all the file pieces back where he found them and hid behind a tall shelf. Through the spaces between books, he saw Elder Counselor Thresh-El enter the room. The ancient being looked directly at Kethvar's hiding place and spoke in a tired voice. Some knowledge carries a price too heavy for young minds, Kethvar. Come out. We need to talk. Elder Counselor Threshael sat across from Kethvar in the archive room. The old being's many eyes looked tired and sad. You should not have come here, Threshael said quietly. I had to know, Kethvar replied. The blank space on the map, humans destroyed their own people just to scare us? Not to scare us. To warn us. Threshael touched one of the damaged files. They wanted us to understand that war with them would be terrible for everyone. So they showed us the smallest example of what they could do. But why keep it secret? Why not tell new council members? Threshael was quiet for a long moment. Because some knowledge is dangerous. If young species knew about human power, some would want to steal it. Others would want to destroy humans before humans could destroy them. Either choice would end badly for everyone. So we just pretend they do not exist? We leave them alone and they leave us alone. It has worked for 200 years. Kethvar felt angry. This is not right. My people deserve to know the truth. Threshael stood up slowly. Your people deserve to live safely. Go back to your quarters, Kethvar. Forget what you read tonight. This conversation never happened. But Kethvar could not forget. 4 days he walked around the council building thinking about what he had learned. He sent secret messages to his government on the Zephyrian homeworld. 2 weeks later he received a reply. The Zephyrian government was very interested in these humans. They wanted to know more. Send a probe, the message said. Find out what they really are. Find out if they are still dangerous. Kethvar knew this was wrong. But his curiosity was stronger than his fear. He sent back a message, I will help you. 3 months later, a small Zephyrian probe ship left the outer edge of council space. It was designed to be invisible to most sensors. Only Kethvar knew its real destination. The probe took many weeks to reach the Sol system. Kethvar watched its progress on a secret communication device in his apartment. When the probe reached the edge of human space, it began sending back pictures and data. The Sol system had 9 planets around a yellow star. The third planet was covered with lights, cities and roads and signs of billions of people. They look like a normal civilization, Kethvar said to himself. Where are the terrible weapons? The probe moved deeper into the system. It saw human ships traveling between planets. The ships were not very big and did not have heavy weapons. They looked peaceful. Then something appeared on the probe's sensors. A single human ship was coming toward them. It was not moving fast or acting threatening. The human ship sent a message in perfect galactic standard language. Unknown probe, you are entering restricted space. Please identify yourself. The probe did not answer. Its orders were to stay hidden and just observe. The human ship tried again. Unknown probe, we are not trying to hurt you. But this area is dangerous. Please turn around and go back. Still the probe did not answer. The human ship followed the probe but kept a safe distance. Every few minutes it sent another message. Please reconsider. You do not understand what you are flying toward. Kethvar watched this from his apartment. The humans did not seem angry or threatening. They seemed worried. Why are they trying to protect my probe? He wondered. The probe continued deeper into the system. It passed the second planet and headed toward a group of asteroids between the second and third planets. The human ship's messages became more urgent. You must stop now. Please. We do not want anyone to get hurt. Turn back immediately. There are things here that you cannot see. Please listen to us. We know what is in this area. But the probe kept going. Kethvar had programmed it to explore the entire system. When the probe reached the asteroid field, its sensors detected something strange. There were structures hidden among the rocks. Big structures. Huge structures that did not look like human technology. The probe sent back one final message, detecting unknown energy signatures. Architecture appears non-human. Age estimates indicate millions of years old. Structures are awakening. Then the probe's signal went silent. Kethvar tried for hours to reconnect with the probe. Nothing worked. The probe was gone. But before it died, the probe had sent him one last piece of data. A recording of the human ship's final message. We are so sorry. We tried to warn you. The Watchers are waking up now. Your probe triggered something that has been sleeping for a very long time. Please forgive us. We never wanted this to happen. The human voice sounded sad and afraid. Not afraid of the probe, but afraid for the probe. Kethvar sat in his dark apartment staring at the empty communication screen. The humans had tried to save his probe. They had not attacked it or threatened it. They had tried to protect it from something else. Something old. Something dangerous. Something that lived in human space but was not human. For the first time since he had started investigating the Sol system, Kethvar began to understand. The blank space on the council map was not there to keep people away from humans. It was there to keep people away from something much worse. And the humans were standing guard over it. 2 days after the probe disappeared, something impossible happened. A message came to the Galactic Council building. It was addressed to Elder Counselor Threshael, but it came from Sol System. From humans. The message was simple: we need to talk. 2 of our people are coming to the council. Please do not be afraid. Threshael called an emergency meeting. All the senior council members gathered in a private room. Kethvar was not invited, but he watched from outside through the glass doors. He saw Threshael showing the other council members something on a screen. All their faces looked scared. Some were shaking. One representative from the insect-like Chitauri species actually fainted. 3 days later, a small ship arrived at the council station. It was not like the human ships the probe had seen. This one was bigger and had strange markings on its hull. The markings looked very old, but they were not human writing. Security guards surrounded the docking bay. Everyone was nervous. No human had come to the council building in 200 years. 2 humans stepped out of the ship. They looked smaller than most council species. They had smooth skin and small eyes and hair on their heads. They walked on 2 legs and seemed very calm. The first human was a male who introduced himself as Captain Junho Lee. The second was a female named Dr. Minna Park. They both wore simple blue uniforms with no weapons. Elder Counselor Threshael met them at the docking bay. Kethvar hid behind a corner to watch. "Honored Counselor," Captain Lee said with a slight bow. "We apologize for coming without invitation. But your probe triggered something that forces us to break our silence." "What did it trigger?" Threshael asked. His voice was shaking. Dr. Park opened a small case she was carrying. Inside was a crystal that glowed with soft light. "This is a control fragment from what we call the Silence Network. Your probe woke up one of the nodes." "I do not understand," Threshael said. Captain Lee looked around to make sure no one else was listening. "May we speak in private? What we have to tell you affects the entire galaxy." An hour later, the main council chamber was filled with representatives from every major species. Captain Lee and Dr. Park stood in the center where usually only council members were allowed to speak. Kethvar sat in the back trying to be invisible. Dr. Park activated a holographic display. It showed the galaxy from above, with all the star systems and trade routes that everyone knew. But then new lines appeared on the display. Strange geometric patterns that connected every major system. "This is what your galaxy really looks like," Dr. Park said. "What you see as empty space between stars is actually filled with an ancient machine network." The patterns on the display were beautiful but also frightening. They looked like a spider web made of light, covering everything. "We call them the Silence Makers," Captain Lee continued. "They were built by a species that died out millions of years ago. These machines have one purpose: to prevent galactic wars." "That sounds good," said Counselor Marthak. "Why is this a problem?" "Because they prevent wars by destroying any civilization that grows too large or spreads too far," Dr. Park explained. "When they detect what they think is dangerous expansion, they activate. They sterilize entire star systems." The council chamber became very quiet. Captain Lee touched a control and the display changed. Now it showed the Sol system, but it looked nothing like what the probe had seen. Earth was surrounded by massive structures that pulsed with energy. 200 years ago, when we first met your council, we had just discovered these machines. One of them was waking up because it detected increased galactic trade and communication. It thought your council was preparing for a major war. "The demonstration your ancestors witnessed," Dr. Park said softly, "was not us showing our weapons. It was us sacrificing 3 of our colonies to contain a silence maker that was about to sterilize half the galaxy." Elder Counselor Threshael's voice was barely a whisper. "You killed your own people to save us?" "We had learned how to partially control the machines by then," Captain Lee said. "We could direct their energy away from other systems and toward our own colonies. It was the only way to satisfy the network's programming without destroying everyone." "But why did you not tell us this?" asked Representative Voxtal. Dr. Park looked sad. "Because we were not sure we could trust you. And because we hoped we could find a better solution if we had time to study the machines alone." "For 200 years, Captain Lee continued, every human settlement has existed primarily to monitor and maintain the Silence Network. We gave up exploration, expansion, even normal lives to keep these machines sleeping. We became the galaxy's prison guards," Dr. Park added, watching over something that could destroy everything if it ever fully woke up. The holographic display changed again. This time it showed red warning lights throughout the galaxy. But now the network is awakening naturally, Captain Lee said. Your probe crossing into our space triggered sensors we had spent decades learning to suppress. Other nodes are beginning to activate in response. In approximately 50 years, the silence makers will fully activate. When they do, they will not distinguish between peaceful expansion and military conquest. They will sterilize every advanced civilization to restore what they think is proper balance. Dr. Park closed her case with the glowing crystal. We can no longer contain this alone. We need help. We need the Council to understand what we have been protecting you from. And we need to find a way to shut down the network permanently before it decides that galactic civilization itself has become too dangerous to allow. The silence in the chamber was complete. 200 years of fear and mystery had just been replaced with a much more terrifying truth. The humans were not the galaxy's greatest threat. They were its only hope. The council chamber stayed silent for a very long time after Captain Lee and Dr. Park finished speaking. Representatives from dozens of species sat frozen in their seats, trying to understand what they had just learned. Finally, Elder Counselor Threshold spoke in a weak voice. All these years, we thought you were dangerous. We are dangerous, Captain Lee said quietly. But not to you. We are dangerous to the machines because we learned how to fight them. That is why we stayed away. We did not want anyone to accidentally wake up more of the network. Counselor Marthek raised one of his 4 hands. You said the machines will activate in 50 years. What will happen to us? Dr. Park touched her control device. The holographic display showed a simulation. Star systems across the galaxy began turning dark one by one. The silence makers will target any planet with more than a few million people. They will destroy space stations, ships, and cities. They think large civilizations always lead to war. How many people will die? Whispered Representative Talmor from his water tank. Everyone, Captain Lee said simply. Every advanced species in the galaxy. The machines will leave only primitive worlds with small populations. Kethvar could not stay quiet anymore. He stood up from his seat in the back. You knew this would happen for 200 years. Why did you wait so long to tell us? All eyes turned to him. Captain Lee looked surprised to see him. You are the one who sent the probe, Captain Lee said. It was not a question. Kethvar's green skin turned pale. Yes, I'm sorry. I did not know. We are not angry, Dr. Park said. Your probe did what probes are supposed to do. It explored and discovered things. But it also triggered sensors that we had been very careful to avoid. She opened her case again and took out the glowing crystal. This control fragment came from the node your probe activated. We had to destroy our own research station to contain it. More of your people died because of me, Kethvar said, feeling terrible. 17 researchers, Captain Lee confirmed. But they knew the risks. Every human who works with the Silence Network knows they might die to protect others. Elder Counselor Threshold leaned forward. What do you need from us? How can we help? Dr. Park activated a new display. This one showed detailed plans and diagrams. We need to build monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. Every major star system needs sensors that can detect when silence maker nodes are beginning to activate. We also need research teams, Captain Lee added. Human scientists have learned much about the network, but we are only one species. We need different kinds of minds working on this problem. And we need trust, Dr. Park said. For this to work, every council species must share their most advanced technology. We must work together like never before. Representative Voxtal asked, what if we cannot stop the machines? What if 50 years is not enough time? Captain Lee and Dr. Park looked at each other. Then we evacuate as many people as possible to the outer rim, Captain Lee said. Far from the major star systems. Small groups might survive. But most of our civilizations would end, Dr. Park added. The chamber filled with worried voices as representatives talked among themselves in dozens of different languages. Finally, Threshold called for order. We must vote, he announced. All in favor of full cooperation with the humans to fight the Silence Network. Every hand, tentacle, wing, and claw in the chamber went up. The vote was unanimous. Dr. Park smiled for the first time since arriving. Then we begin immediately. We have brought technical data about the network and the locations of all known nodes. Over the following days, the council building became busier than ever before. Scientists from every species worked together, sharing knowledge that had been kept secret for centuries. Kethvar found himself appointed as a special liaison between the Council and the human team. Captain Lee did not blame him for the probe incident. "You did what any curious person would do," the captain told him. "And because of your probe, we finally have the excuse we needed to ask for help." "Excuse?" Kethvar asked. "We wanted to tell the Council the truth for many years," Dr. Park explained. "But we were afraid. Afraid that some species might try to use the silence makers as weapons. Afraid that others might panic and make the situation worse. But now we have no choice," Captain Lee said. "The network is waking up whether we want it to or not. We must work together or everyone dies." 3 months later, construction began on the first joint monitoring station in the Rigel system. Human engineers worked alongside Chitauri builders and Aquari technicians. Species that had barely spoken to each other for centuries now shared tools and ideas. The blank space on the Council's territorial maps was replaced with new markings: Sol System Network Control Center Joint Operations. But more importantly, the humans were no longer alone. Captain Junho Lee stood on the observation deck of the new monitoring station, watching ships from a dozen different species working together in space. Beside him, Kethvar studied data displays showing network activity across the galaxy. "Do you think we can really stop them?" Kethvar asked. Captain Lee watched a human transport dock with a Zephyrian science vessel. "I do not know," he said honestly. "But for the first time in 200 years I have hope. My people have carried this burden alone for too long. Now we carry it together." In the distance, construction lights blinked as the galaxy's children worked to save themselves from the silence that had been waiting in the dark between the stars.